There is one simple oil that can transform a man's vitality after the age of 60, but most doctors never talk about it. When applied to a very specific point on the body, it can completely change the intimate experience. Why is this kept a secret? My name is Dr. Ana Esperanza, a physician specializing in men's health, and today I will reveal the truth about castor oil. You'll discover both the benefits and the hidden risks that nobody dares to mention. Comment now, "I want the hidden truth," and stay until the very end, because every minute will bring a revelation that might shock you. Castor oil is ancient, discreet, and underestimated. For centuries, it has appeared in records across cultures, used as a powerful laxative, a solution for hair loss, a wound healer, and even as an ointment in purification rituals. In ancient India, Ayurvedic texts described it as an oil that could unblock the body's channels. In Egypt, archaeologists found vials of castor oil inside tombs more than 2,000 years old, suggesting it was considered valuable enough to accompany the dead into the afterlife. The Romans lit lamps with it, but they also used it as a household remedy for joint pain and skin problems. In pre-Columbian America, certain communities incorporated it into fertility rites, believing it could awaken what was dormant. Across Africa, oral traditions mention the oil as part of intimate rituals, often kept hidden from outsiders. The knowledge never disappeared. It simply moved underground, traveling quietly from one generation to the next. Today, many people keep a small bottle of castor oil in their home without ever suspecting that, applied in a particular way, it can act on parts of the body where circulation is naturally weaker. That is the key to understanding why some men, after the age of 60, report surprising transformations when they use it before intimacy. Science does not ignore its properties. Modern studies show that castor oil contains ricinoleic acid, a compound with anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and circulation-boosting effects. In simpler terms, it can improve blood flow in places where, with age, the body responds more slowly. For some men, that's all the explanation they need to believe the stories of warmth, energy, and renewed confidence. But when the oil enters the territory of male intimacy, medicine draws a curtain of silence, and that silence speaks volumes. On one hand, there are men who describe an almost miraculous return of vigor, a sense of being younger for a few fleeting moments. On the other, there are cautionary tales of irritation, burning, even swelling that made them regret the attempt. Castor oil was never designed for such use. Maybe it's precisely that transgression, that crossing into forbidden territory, that makes it so alluring and so dangerous. Picture this: a 65-year-old man, worn down by years of silent frustrations, decides to try. He finds a cryptic message on a forum, explaining that applying just a small amount of castor oil to a secret point on the body 30 minutes before intimacy can change everything. Nervous but intrigued, he follows the instructions. Within minutes, warmth spreads across his skin. His body reacts in ways he thought impossible, and a confidence long buried begins to rise. For the first time in years, he feels alive. But then the doubts creep in. Was this just suggestion? Or is there really something medicine refuses to acknowledge? That's where the mystery deepens. The oil seems to work for some, but not for all. Why? The male body after 60 carries scars that don't show on the surface. Slowed circulation, declining hormone levels, tissues that no longer repair as easily. For some, the oil acts like a spark on dry wood, igniting a fire. For others, nothing happens beyond frustration. And in a few cases, new problems appear instead. Medical literature avoids this question altogether. Research mentions castor oil for the skin, the scalp, the joints, but not one recognized study dares to address its potential effects on male vitality. This omission feels too deliberate to be accidental. After all, if so many cultures throughout history left traces of its use in rituals, why is there no modern investigation into its most intimate potential? Maybe the answer lies at the uneasy border between science and taboo. Certain practices survive in whispers, not in journals. They live in hushed conversations, in half-forgotten notes, in personal experiments shared anonymously. In that subterranean world, castor oil takes on a forbidden, almost conspiratorial aura. Men whisper that they've uncovered a secret lifeline where doctors offered only silence. Others scoff, saying it's all exaggeration. But the practice refuses to vanish. It resurfaces in hidden corners of the internet, in confidential talks, in anonymous stories. Like an underground river that never dries up, it flows just beneath the surface of ordinary life. Here's what few people realize. This cheap oil, sold in any pharmacy, contains a striking duality. On one side, the potential to awaken intense sensations. On the other, the ever-present risk that those same sensations could twist into agony. Its power lies in that fragile balance, promise against peril. Independent researchers have at times hinted at unexplored uses for castor oil, but their voices were quickly dismissed, their proposals buried. There was no funding, no interest, perhaps because the subject touched too closely on areas medicine prefers to keep in the dark. When it comes to male vitality and sexuality after 60, taboo is often as strong as biology itself. And this raises the unsettling question. Is the silence around castor oil a matter of scientific caution or deliberate concealment? Could revealing the truth disrupt not only medical discourse, but also the way millions of men confront aging? Think about it. A common oil, inexpensive and available everywhere, possibly hiding a secret that could reshape intimacy and self-confidence. If that were true, wouldn't it make sense that there would be resistance to letting it out? After all, anything that fuses pleasure with risk always stirs conflict. And here is another layer often overlooked, the psychological dimension. Some men describe not only physical effects, but also a mental ritual. The act of applying the oil feels like preparing for battle, a symbolic pact with themselves. The combination of expectation and physical warmth creates a shift in mindset, as though the mind itself were conspiring with the oil to restore lost strength. Others report the opposite. They hoped for a miracle and found only pain, discomfort, and shame. For them, the oil became a cruel reminder that some lines should never be crossed. Their stories reinforce a darker truth. Castor oil is not an innocent household remedy, but a mirror. In it, a man might glimpse renewed confidence or watch it shatter completely. And this is only the beginning. Castor oil, when used in ways medicine never intended, defies logic. It also challenges human curiosity. Above all, it exposes a troubling reality. Sometimes what can change a life is exactly what has been pushed into the shadows. But what you've heard so far is just the surface of a far deeper secret. Behind every promise of vitality lies a shadow. And with castor oil, that shadow grows darker the deeper you look. When used outside its traditional roles, the oil shifts from natural ally to silent enemy. Skin irritation, redness, swelling, even micro tears. These are not rare reports, but testimonies whispered by men who dared to experiment. Yet few ever speak of these dangers openly. Conventional medicine remains silent. It's as if an invisible pact forbids any discussion. Search through medical journals and textbooks, and you'll find castor oil described as a laxative, as a treatment for skin and hair, even as a joint remedy, but not a single official reference to its intimate use. Why this omission? Is it mere lack of research interest, or an intentional decision to keep the subject buried? That silence becomes even more chilling when you read anonymous accounts scattered across hidden forums. Men over 60 describe moments of heat, vigor, and strength that shocked them, but others speak of nights destroyed by burning pain, itching, or even light bleeding. The line between success and disaster is razor thin. For some, castor oil is revival. For others, ruin. And the damage is not only physical. The psychological toll of a failed attempt can be devastating. Imagine expecting renewed vitality only to end up with shame, discomfort, and fear. For older men already struggling with confidence, such a failure cuts deeper than the body. It strikes the mind. Anxiety, regret, even depression often follow. One story in particular has lingered, passed around like a warning. It came from a man who identified himself only as J.A. At 62, weary of watching his energy fade, J.A. stumbled upon an obscure post in an old medical discussion group. It described, in unnerving detail, how to apply castor oil to a very specific point on the male body, 30 minutes before intimacy. The promise, a sudden return of vitality, as though youth itself had been temporarily restored. Driven by a mix of hope and desperation, J.A. decided to try. He followed the instructions exactly. Measured application, patient waiting. At first it was everything he hoped for. A wave of heat, a surge of strength, a spark where weakness had ruled for years. His body felt awake again, alive in ways he thought gone forever. That night he described the experience as powerful. Confidence flooded back. Desire felt real again. For a brief moment it seemed the forbidden secret had worked, but the story didn't end there. By morning J.A. noticed a faint redness where he had applied the oil. He dismissed it. A minor reaction, he thought. But hours later the irritation grew sharper, the skin more tender. Within 2 days, the area showed clear signs of inflammation. The oil that had given him euphoria now delivered pain. Too embarrassed to admit what he had done, J.A. avoided his doctor. He tried to fix it himself. Creams, cold compresses, improvised remedies. Nothing worked. The pain lingered for weeks, and along with it came something worse. The crushing weight of shame. He had broken a taboo, chased a secret, and been punished for it. But the impact went further. He withdrew from intimacy altogether, terrified of aggravating the injury. His partner noticed the change, the excuses, the distance, but J.A. could never bring himself to explain. What began as an attempt to restore confidence ended by eroding it completely, and that psychological scar, he admitted in a later comment, was worse than the physical pain. That post eventually disappeared. J.A. deleted it, perhaps unable to bear reliving the humiliation. But fragments of his story remain, circulating in corners of the internet. And it isn't unique. It mirrors a pattern. Men chasing quiet solutions, experimenting in secrecy, and paying the price. Some find glory, others find scars. And J.A. wasn't the only one. In the same threads where his words appeared, echoes of other men's voices could be found. Some claimed miraculous nights of power and confidence. Others described raw skin, stinging pain, weeks of regret. A few admitted they tried again, despite the risks. Seduced by the memory of that fleeting moment of strength, they spoke of bargaining with themselves. Just one more time. Maybe I was unlucky before. Maybe it will be different now. But most never posted again. Their silence was louder than any testimony. Did they give up in disappointment? Or were they too ashamed to return and admit the outcome? No one knows. And that uncertainty only deepens the mystery. Which leads to a disturbing question. Is the danger part of the attraction? Does the very fact that it's forbidden make castor oil irresistible? Why are so many men willing to risk their health for a few fleeting minutes of vitality? The dark side of castor oil lies exactly here, in the shadow between promise and peril. Every attempt is a gamble. Some win, others lose everything. Maybe that's why doctors avoid the subject. To acknowledge it openly might encourage more men to try, and the risks would spiral out of control. Silence becomes a shield, but silence is also fuel. The more a secret is hidden, the more powerful it becomes. And yet, some whisper that the silence is not just about safety. Some suggest that medicine avoids the topic out of fear. Fear of liability, fear of encouraging risky behavior, even fear of disrupting markets built on more expensive treatments for male vitality. After all, how would it look if something as cheap and accessible as castor oil could rival costly interventions? The absence of research may not be accidental. It may be intentional. Think about it. A common oil, sitting on pharmacy shelves for a few dollars, capable of inspiring both fascination and fear. A substance that, when used in this forbidden way, turns intimacy into something unpredictable. This isn't just chemistry. It's taboo. It's transgression. It's the collision of desire and danger. And when hope collides with risk, the outcome is never simple. The body may respond, yes, but the cost could be higher than anyone expects. The most unsettling part is that the cost doesn't always appear immediately. Irritation can creep in hours later. Inflammation days later, loss of confidence, maybe forever. Shame has a way of sticking long after the body heals. It's here, in this treacherous territory, that the second layer of mystery reveals itself. Castor oil isn't just an innocent curiosity. It's a forbidden promise that hides a silent threat, and anyone who dares to cross that line must be prepared for the consequences. But this is still not the end, because beyond the pain, beyond the silence, there lies an even deeper secret, a hidden limit that almost no one knows, and that limit is the part no one is prepared for. We've arrived at the point where the boundary between promise and danger nearly disappears. Castor oil, cheap, ordinary, accessible, hides an ambiguity so deep that it resists classification. For some men, it becomes the spark of intimate rebirth. For others, the trigger of pain, regret, and silence. That duality is what gives the oil its forbidden aura, its whisper of mystery. After 60, the male body no longer responds as it once did. Circulation slows, recovery takes longer, confidence becomes fragile. In this vulnerable landscape, even the faintest hope of renewed vitality glows like a beacon. Castor oil, with its ability to stimulate blood flow and create warmth, feels like that beacon, a small miracle in a bottle. Yet alongside that spark comes a shadow, the silent risk of damage. The stories couldn't be more different. Some men recount unforgettable nights, describing confidence reborn, firmness returned, pleasure heightened beyond expectation. For them, the oil became a ritual, almost sacred, not just a physical act, but a psychological pact with themselves, a way of saying, I am still alive, I am still a man. But the other side of the mirror is unavoidable. Men tell of burning sensations, of inflammation, of tenderness that lasted days. Some describe it as fire beneath the skin, a flame that offered no pleasure, only punishment. Others confess to scars less visible, humiliation, guilt, fear that they had crossed a line from which there was no way back. It is this brutal oscillation, ecstasy for some, agony for others, that makes the oil so dangerous and so magnetic. What unsettles most is the absence of certainty. No clinical studies, no clear answers, no reliable guidelines, only fragmented testimonies, anonymous voices scattered across obscure corners of the internet. Each account carries the weight of truth for the one who lived it, but for the outsider, they are like shards of a shattered mirror, impossible to piece into a single, reliable reflection. And here lies the trap. Uncertainty itself can be intoxicating. For some, the act of experimenting with castor oil is not just about seeking vitality. It's about daring to touch the forbidden. It's about defying silence, breaking a taboo, playing with danger. It's about stepping to the edge of a cliff, heart pounding, knowing that one misstep could bring irreversible consequences. Some men go further, creating elaborate rituals around it. They choose specific times, combine the oil with herbal teas, with breathing exercises, with meditation. Every detail is part of a ceremony. They insist the ritual itself amplifies the effect, turning the oil into something more than a substance, into a key to another state of being. But warnings remain. Dermatologists point out that the skin in intimate areas is especially fragile. Oils can clog pores, upset natural balance, and create the perfect conditions for infection. What begins as an experiment can end as a medical problem, and one not easily undone. This duality, pleasure on one side, danger on the other, is exactly what fuels the fascination. Castor oil isn't compelling despite the risk. It's compelling because of it. The taboo adds weight, the danger adds heat, and the more men whisper about its potential, the darker and heavier the shadow of its risks becomes. Picture an older man, 68 years old, standing in his room with a small bottle in his hand. He knows the risks. He's read the stories, the warnings, the regrets. But he's also read the other side, the miracles, the nights of passion regained. To him, that bottle isn't just oil. It's a symbol, a challenge, a test of how much he's willing to risk for the chance of feeling alive again. He breathes deeply, He hesitates, and then, with trembling hands, he chooses. That's the essence of this mystery. Castor oil is not merely chemistry, it is temptation. It is fear. It is a test of how far a man will go to reclaim what time has taken away. And because no two men respond the same way, the truth will never be universal. Each body, each mind, writes its own ending. The most overlooked piece of this puzzle is psychological. For many, the act itself, applying oil to a secret point of the body, triggers adrenaline before anything physical even happens. The sensation of breaking a medical silence, of touching the forbidden, creates excitement in its own right. That alone changes the body's chemistry. That alone can awaken desire. And yet questions linger. Where is the line? At what point does the experiment tip from benefit to irreversible harm? How much is too much? How often is too often? These questions hang unanswered because no authority dares to explore them. Some men claim that the first 1 or 2 uses brought incredible results, but repeated use dulled the effect, or worse, created damage. Others swear by moderation, insisting that the secret lies in restraint. Do it once, rarely, never too often. To them, the oil is like a match, useful for a spark, but dangerous if played with too long. And then there are the ones who couldn't stop, who felt the rush once and chased it again, convinced the second time would be even better. They speak of addiction, not to the oil itself, but to the possibility it holds, the possibility of rebirth, the possibility of cheating time. But each repetition pushed them closer to the edge until what once brought exhilaration began to bring pain. This idea of a limit gives the practice an almost religious character, as if there is a sacred boundary. Cross it, and there is no return. For those who swear by it, the art lies not in the oil itself, but in knowing when to stop. But what happens when a man doesn't know where that limit is? What happens when desperation to feel alive blinds him to the warning signs? What happens when one more try becomes too many? No manual explains. No study confirms. The answers are buried in the bodies and the regrets of those who went too far. In this sense, castor oil becomes a mirror. It reflects a man's deepest desires and his darkest fears. It forces him to confront the tension between hope and ruin, between longing and consequence. It asks the question few dare to face. How far will you go to feel alive again? And it is here, in this razor-thin balance, that the mystery sharpens. Because castor oil can, yes, deliver a fleeting surge of vitality, but it can also deliver consequences that last forever. What almost no one realizes is that there is a hidden threshold, a secret boundary that changes everything you think you know about this oil. And that threshold will only be revealed at the very end. We've traveled through shadows, from stories of sudden vitality to tales of pain and regret. Castor oil has revealed itself for what it truly is, an ambiguous promise. And now, it is time to uncover what has been hidden from the very beginning, the invisible threshold. That threshold is not a magic trick, nor an unbreakable formula. It is a warning, the exact point where castor oil stops being an ally and turns into an enemy depends on 2 things: how much is used and how often. A single rare application may bring a fleeting spark of warmth and confidence, but repetition, or using too much, opens the door to consequences that do not show themselves immediately. Few men realize this. The skin may endure the first try, even the second, but each repeated application leaves behind invisible scars, micro-lesions, chronic irritation, gradual loss of sensitivity. What begins as a thrill of strength can end as a greater weakness than before. That is the true secret. A line that once crossed offers no way back. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The majority of positive accounts come from men who used it only once or twice. The ones who chased the feeling again and again are the ones who later confessed to pain, regret, and humiliation. The obsession turned promise into punishment. After 60, the male body is like fragile ground. Every choice leaves a mark. Every intervention has weight. Castor oil may serve as a temporary ally, but it was never meant to be a permanent solution. That is the trap. believing that something so simple can reverse the march of time. It cannot. All it offers is a brief illusion, and that illusion carries a price. Perhaps this is why medicine stays silent, not just out of caution, but out of protection. To speak openly might tempt countless men into reckless experiments, and a secret this tempting can quickly turn into a collective danger. Silence becomes a shield, but also a curse, leaving men to discover the truth alone, in whispers and in shame. Now you know. Castor oil is neither miracle nor pure poison. It is an enigma with two faces, one that offers confidence for an instant, and another that strips it away forever if the line is crossed. The real secret lies in rarity, in using it as an exception, never as a habit. And yet, even with this knowledge, many will still try, because the forbidden always seduces, because the desire to cheat time is stronger than fear, because when a man feels something slipping away, he will risk everything to hold on to it, even for a moment. If you've made it this far, you can no longer say you didn't know. The decision is now yours. Type in the comments, "I know the hidden threshold." I want to see who truly stayed until the end of this revelation. And don't forget to subscribe, because here we bring to light the truths that others prefer to keep buried. Until next time, when another secret will be revealed.